Hush, forest of shadows. The forest was a cathedral of whispers, its ancient trees stretching toward a sky that bled crimson as the sun sank below the horizon. Clara adjusted her backpack, the weight of it digging into her shoulders. She was no stranger to hiking, but this trip felt different. The air was thick, almost syrupy, carrying a faint metallic tang that made her nose wrinkle. Her friends, Mark and Sophie, trudged ahead, their laughter from earlier now replaced by an uneasy silence. The three of them had planned this weekend getaway to escape the city, to reconnect in the wilderness of Blackwood Forest. But as dusk settled, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. "This place gives me the creeps," Sophie muttered, her voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves. She pulled her jacket tighter, her blonde hair catching the last slivers of daylight. "Did you guys hear that?" "Hear what?" Mark asked, pausing to glance back. His usual cocky grin was gone, replaced by a furrowed brow. He was the group's self-proclaimed leader, always the first to dismiss ghost stories or urban legends. But even he seemed on edge. Papa went. "It was, I don't know," like a whisper, Sophie said, her eyes darting to the shadowed undergrowth. "Not the wind. Something else." Clara stopped, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. She listened. The forest was alive with sound. Creaking branches, scurrying critters, the distant hoot of an owl. But beneath it all, there was something else. A low, rhythmic hum, almost like a chant, too faint to make out. She shivered, though the evening was warm. "You're imagining things," Mark said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Let's just find the campsite before it gets too dark." They'd chosen Blackwood Forest because it was remote, untouched by the usual crowds of campers. The ranger at the trailhead had warned them to stick to the marked paths, his weathered face stern as he handed them a map. "People get lost out there," he'd said, "and not all of them come back." Clara had laughed it off at the time, chalking it up to small town folklore meant to scare tourists. Now, as the trees seemed to lean closer, she wasn't so sure. The trail wound deeper into the forest, the path narrowing until it was barely a suggestion of packed dirt. Clara's flashlight beam danced across gnarled roots and moss-covered rocks. She glanced at the map, her stomach twisting. They should have reached the clearing by now. "Mark, are you sure we're going the right way?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stopped, staring at the map in his hands. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "The trail should fork here." But Clara peered over his shoulder. The map showed a clear split in the path, one leading to the campsite, the other deeper into the forest. But ahead, there was no fork, just a single unbroken trail, disappearing into the dark. "Maybe we missed it," Sophie suggested, her voice trembling. "We should backtrack." Mark shook his head. "We've been walking for hours. It's too late to turn back now. Let's keep going. The clearing's gotta be close." Clara wanted to argue, but the thought of retracing their steps in the growing dark was worse. They pressed on, the forest growing denser, the air colder. The hum Clara had noticed earlier was louder, now unmistakable. It wasn't a chant, she realized, but a pulse, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. Guys, Sophie whispered, stopping dead. Look back. Clara followed her gaze. A few yards off the trail, half hidden by ferns, was a pile of stones. They were stacked deliberately, not like a natural rockfall. Each stone was flat, polished smooth, arranged in a perfect circle. In the center was a symbol carved into the earth, a spiral with jagged edges, like a starburst. What the hell is that? Mark asked, stepping closer. Don't touch it, Clara snapped, grabbing his arm. She didn't know why, but the sight of the stones sent a jolt of fear through her. It's not right. Mark pulled free, rolling his eyes. It's just some weird hiker art. People do this stuff all the time. But Sophie was backing away, her face pale. No, Clara's right. It feels wrong. Like we're not supposed to be here. Before Mark could respond, a twig snapped behind them. They spun around, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Nothing. No sea. Just trees and shadows. But the air had shifted, grown heavier, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Let's go, Clara said, her voice barely steady. Now. They moved faster, almost running, the path twisting under their feet. The hum was louder, vibrating in Clara's chest. She tried to focus on her breathing, on the crunch of leaves beneath her boots. Anything to drown out the sound, but it was relentless, burrowing into her thoughts. Then Sophie screamed. Clara whirled around. Sophie was on her knees, clutching her head, her flashlight rolling in the dirt. It's in my head, she sobbed. The voices. They're telling me to stay. Mark dropped to her side, shaking her shoulders. Sophie, snap out of it. There's nothing. But Clara heard it too. Not just the hum now, but words, fragmented, overlapping, like a chorus of whispers. Stayed, died, tore, hands, kayu, watch, taught on, belong, dance. Her skin crawled, and she grabbed Sophie's arm, pulling her up. We need to move. They stumbled forward, half dragging Sophie, who was muttering incoherently. The path was gone now, swallowed by the forest. Trees loomed closer, their branches clawing at Clara's clothes. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something sour like decay. And then they saw it. Ahead, in a small clearing, stood a figure. It was tall, impossibly thin, its limbs bent at unnatural angles. Its face, if it had one, was hidden in shadow, but Clara felt its gaze, heavy and unyielding. The hum was deafening now, a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from the figure itself. Mark froze, his flashlight trembling in his hand. What is that? Clara's mouth was dry, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Run, she whispered. But Sophie did not move. She stared at the figure, her eyes wide, almost entranced. It's beautiful, she murmured. Sophie, no. Clara grabbed her, but Sophie pulled free, stepping toward the figure. The air shimmered around her, like heat rising from asphalt. Clara lunged, tackling her to the ground, just as the figure moved, its limbs jerking like a marionette's. Get off me! Sophie screamed, thrashing. It wants me. Mark yanked Sophie up, his face pale, but determined. We're getting out of here. Now. They ran, crashing through the underbrush, branches tearing at their skin. The hum chased them, growing louder, the voices clearer. You can't leave. You belong. Clara's legs burned, her lungs screaming for air, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. The figure was behind them. She could feel it, a presence that pressed against her mind, urging her to turn back. They burst into another clearing, and for a moment, Clara thought died, found sight. But the ground was wrong, covered in more of those polished stones, hundreds of them, arranged in spirals that stretched into the darkness. In the center was a tree, ancient and gnarled, its bark carved with the same jagged symbol they'd seen before. Mark swore under his breath. This isn't on the map. Sophie was trembling, her eyes fixed on the tree. It's calling us, she whispered. It's been waiting. Clara's flashlight flickered, then died. Mark's followed, plunging them into near darkness. The only light came from the moon, barely piercing the canopy, casting eerie shadows across the stones. The hum was a roar now, the voices a command. Kneel. Obey. Run. Clara's knees buckled, and she caught herself against a tree. Her vision swam, the world tilting. She saw flashes, images that didn't belong to her. People in the forest, their faces twisted in fear, hands clawing at the earth. Blood seeping into the soil, and above it all, the figure, watching, always watching. Clara. Mark's voice snapped her back. Shh. He was shaking her, his face inches from hers. Stay with me. She nodded, forcing herself to stand. Sophie was on her knees, staring at the tree, her lips moving silently. Clara grabbed her, hauling her up. We're not staying here. But as they turned to run, the figure was there, blocking their path. It was closer now, its form shifting, as if it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Its limbs stretched, then contracted, its head tilting at an impossible angle. Clara's mind screamed, her body frozen. Mark threw his backpack at it, a desperate, futile gesture. The figure didn't flinch. Instead, it raised a hand, or what passed for a hand, and the air grew colder, the hum so loud it drowned out everything else. Sophie collapsed, her eyes rolling back. Clara caught her, dragging her backward, but her strength was fading. Leave us alone, Clara screamed, her voice raw. The figure paused, its head tilting further, as if curious. Then it spoke, not with a voice, but with a thought that burned into Clara's mind. You came to me. You belong. Friends she. No. Fine. Clara shouted, shaking Sophie, trying to wake her. Mark was beside her, his face ashen. He grabbed a rock, hurling it at the figure. It passed through, as if the creature were made of smoke. The forest seemed to close in, the trees bending, the shadows stretching. Clara's vision blurred, the voices overwhelming. Stay, dance, out, stay, watch, tat oni, belong. She felt herself slipping, her mind unraveling. Then, a new sound, a sharp crack like a gunshot. The figure recoiled, its form flickering. Clara blinked, her head clearing slightly. Another crack, and the hum faltered. She saw a light in the distance, bobbing through the trees. A voice called out, gruff and human. Hey, you kids all right? It was the ranger, his flashlight cutting through the dark, a rifle in his hands. The figure vanished, the hum fading to a whisper. Clara's legs gave out, and she collapsed, Sophie limp in her arms. The ranger reached them, his face grim. Told you to stick to the path, he muttered, helping them up. This place don't take kindly to strangers. He led them out, the forest silent now, as if nothing had happened. Clara didn't look back. She couldn't. But as they reached the trailhead, the ranger stopped, his eyes scanning the trees. Don't come back, he said, his voice low. Some things in Blackwood don't let go. Clara nodded, her heart still racing. She didn't need to be told twice, but as they drove away, the hum lingered in her mind, faint but persistent, and in her dreams she saw the figure waiting in the shadows, its voice a promise. You'll return. And she, you belong. He, one. Why?